When I was younger, family weddings were magical to me. I'd sit cross-legged at the reception tables, watching the bridesmaids in flowing gowns glide across the dance floor, their hair curled just so, their heels clicking like they belonged on a runway. I'd imagine myself in their place, draped in pastel satin, bouquet in hand, part of something elegant and wanted. But that feeling? It didn't last long, because in my family some girls were picked for the spotlight, and others were invisible. I'm Tessa, 24, graphic designer, quiet by nature, average in every way by their standards. Not the kind of girl my family bragged about. Not the kind of cousin who was called first for sleepovers or shopping trips or brunches. That was always Natalie, the perfect cousin. Golden hair, golden tan, golden Instagram. The kind of girl people followed without even knowing why. She was getting married. Big wedding, big dress, big expectations, and I was happy for her. At least, at first. When I got the invitation in the mail, it wasn't fancy, just a simple printed card. Tessa Campbell, you are invited to the wedding of Natalie Blake and Andrew Carter. I waited. No call, no text, no bridesmaid group chat invite, nothing. I assumed maybe the invite was just late, so I texted her. Hey, just wanted to say congrats again. So excited for your big day. Let me know what the bridesmaid dress looks like. A few hours later, she replied, Hey babe, so sweet of you. I actually kept it small for the bridal party. You understand, right? Less stress that way. My stomach dropped. Small. Natalie had 6 best friends alone, not to mention her sister, our cousin Rachel. I scrolled her feed. Yup, a photo from her bachelorette brunch. 7 girls, matching robes, champagne. I wasn't just excluded, I was intentionally left out. I called my mom, told her I thought maybe it was a mistake. She went quiet, then said, Sweetheart, Natalie just thought maybe the photos would look better with a more coordinated look. I blinked. What does that mean? She just didn't want to put pressure on you with fittings and makeup and, Mom. I cut her off. Did she say I wasn't pretty enough? A pause. Then the truth. She just wanted things to look a certain way. You know how girls can be. I hung up. Because I did know how girls could be. Especially girls like Natalie. For a few days I pretended it didn't sting. But when I got tagged in a photo from Natalie's bridesmaids only mani-pedi party, I cracked. They all looked the same. Blonde, slim, smiling, with teeth so white they practically glowed. Matching silk robes. Caption, my perfect girls couldn't imagine saying I do without you. I wasn't even mentioned. The worst part? I would have said yes. I would have stood there in any dress she picked. I would have smiled in every photo. I would have helped carry her gown or fix her veil or pin her hair. But she didn't even give me the chance. I didn't tell anyone how hurt I was. But I stopped scrolling her posts. Stopped checking the group text thread that included every cousin except me. Stopped pretending that the exclusion was just a logistical choice. Because it wasn't. It was personal. And then came the final insult. A phone call from Aunt Margaret, Natalie's mom. Hi, honey, she said, chipper as ever. Natalie just wanted to make sure you'll still be coming to the wedding. I swallowed. Yeah, I'll be there. Oh, good, she chirped. We just know you'll look lovely. And don't worry, we sat you near the back, right by the sound booth. Very easy to slip in and out without drawing attention. I almost choked. Without drawing attention. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said thank you, and hung up. That night, I sat on my bed in silence, not sad, not angry, just clear. I was done being the quiet cousin, done swallowing their jabs, done shrinking to make other people feel beautiful. They didn't think I was good enough to stand beside them. Fine, then I'd walk in front of them. And when I did, they'd never forget it. After I hung up with Aunt Margaret, I stared at the wall for a long time, not crying, not spiraling, just thinking. They didn't want me in the photos, didn't want me beside Natalie, didn't want me to be seen, so I decided I wouldn't go quietly. I'd go beautifully, unexpected, and with someone by my side who'd make them stop mid-bite at the reception dinner. The plan started small. First, the dress. I wasn't usually into fashion. Half my closet was made up of hoodies, leggings, and old art school tees. But I knew how to spot impact. I wanted something that wasn't desperate or flashy. I wanted power. A quiet statement that said, "You didn't pick me, but now you wish you had." I found the dress on accident. A deep, midnight blue gown, silky but structured, with off-the-shoulder sleeves and a slit just high enough to whisper confidence without screaming for it. It wasn't cute. It was striking. I slipped it on in the store dressing room and turned slowly in the mirror. For once I didn't look like the before picture in someone else's glow-up story. I looked like someone who didn't care if you saw her or not, because she knew you would. Next came the +1. I didn't have a boyfriend, didn't even have a flirtation going, but I did have someone in mind. His name was Logan. He worked 2 doors down from my office. He was a marketing consultant. I was a freelance designer. We'd gotten coffee together maybe 3 times in 6 months. Talked about fonts, startup chaos, and mutual exhaustion. But he was funny, smart, ridiculously good-looking in that soft-spoken, rolled sleeves over forearms kind of way, and crucially, he had that presence. The kind that made people pause mid-conversation when he entered a room. Exactly what I needed. I almost didn't act. But one afternoon, after we'd both stayed late working and ended up at the same vending machine, I took the chance. "So weird question," I said, sipping my water. He looked over, interested. "Would you consider being my +1 to a wedding?" He blinked. "A wedding?" "Yeah, you'd get free food and a very dramatic backstory." He smiled. "How dramatic?" "Family drama, cousin exclusion, petty mothers, passive-aggressive speeches. The works." Logan laughed. "Sounds like a Hallmark movie gone dark. I'm in." The relief I felt was instant. Not because I needed a man to make me feel valid, but because I'd finally taken back the narrative. I wasn't going to the wedding to be tolerated. I was going to be seen. The next few weeks flew by. I got the dress tailored, bought shoes that felt like armor, let my hair grow out just enough to style it in soft waves. I even splurged on a professional makeup session, just natural enough to look effortless, but sharp enough to frame every glare I knew I'd get from the bridesmaids' table. The night before the wedding, I sat alone in my apartment. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Don't forget to smile tomorrow. You're still family." Still, as if I'd somehow walked away. I didn't respond. Instead, I looked at myself in the mirror. Not the girl who was passed over. Not the not pretty enough cousin. Not the afterthought. Just me. And she was more than enough. Logan picked me up the next morning in a navy suit that matched my dress like we planned it. We didn't. When I opened the door, he blinked. "Wow. Wow, good," or "Wow, this was a mistake." He grinned. "Wow, you're about to cause a scene." We pulled into the church parking lot 20 minutes before the ceremony started. People were already outside taking photos, fussing with dresses, greeting each other with 2 loud voices. I took a breath, stepped out of the car, and immediately felt it. The pause, the turn of head, the whispered, "Is that Tessa?" The slow blink of people recalculating everything they thought they knew about me. Logan offered his arm. "Ready?" "More than ever," I whispered. Inside, Aunt Margaret did a double take. "Oh," she stammered. You look very elegant." "Thank you," I said. Natalie was across the room laughing with her bridesmaids. She hadn't noticed me yet, but she would. When the ceremony began, I sat quietly in my back row seat, but my presence was louder than any speech, because I was there, undeniable, unbothered, uninvited to the front, but impossible to ignore, and I hadn't even stood up yet. The wedding ceremony itself was beautiful, if you didn't know what it cost people like me to sit through it. Natalie walked down the aisle in her mermaid-cut gown, all fitted lace and shimmering crystal. She looked stunning. That wasn't up for debate. She glided past me like I wasn't even there. Not a glance, not a nod, just perfect posture and perfect poise. That was fine, because I wasn't there for her validation. Logan leaned over and whispered, That's your cousin? I nodded. She looks like she knows it. I smiled. She always did. After the vows, we moved into the grand reception hall, white and gold. Everything, giant floral centerpieces, little glass boxes with everyone's name printed in cursive. Mine was there, barely. Tess C. In tiny font, stuck near the sound booth. Like Aunt Margaret said. Logan took one look at the placement and shook his head. We're not sitting here? I laughed. You're not allowed to just move tables. He raised an eyebrow. Watch me. But before he could act, someone else beat him to the punch. Rachel, our cousin on the quieter side, came up and said, "There's an empty spot at our table. Come sit with us. I don't think anyone would mind." I blinked. Really? She looked around, then leaned closer. You look amazing. You should be seen. Logan smiled. I like her. So we moved. Not a protest from anyone. Then it happened. While I was sipping water and Logan was mid-sentence telling a story about a failed vegan dinner party, Natalie saw me. Across the room, in full light. Laughing, relaxed, confident, and sitting beside him. Her eyes flicked from my dress to Logan to my smile, and for just a second, just one, her perfect wedding day smile dropped. It was fast. But I saw it, and so did Logan. She knows, he said quietly. Knows what? That you won today, and she hates it. The music started. Guests moved to the dance floor. Natalie and Andrew had their first dance, then opened the floor to others. Logan stood and offered his hand. Come on. I hesitated. Dancing wasn't my thing. Not in heels. Not in front of them. He saw my panic and leaned in. They already noticed you. Might as well give them something worth remembering. So I stood, and we danced. Not like pros. Not like influencers. Just like two people who didn't need to pretend. People stared, and whispered, and then smiled. I could see it in the room. Opinions shifting. Not everyone, but enough. Halfway through the evening, Natalie finally approached me. Of course she did it when no one was directly watching, right by the dessert table, where it was dim and quiet. She wore her practiced smile. Hey Tessa, she said lightly. You look nice. I raised an eyebrow. Nice? That's a new one. She tilted her head. I didn't know you were bringing someone. He seems charming. He is. Must have been hard to find a suit that matched your dress so perfectly. Almost looked coordinated. Wasn't. Just luck. A pause. Then she leaned in. Smile stiff. Just don't make a scene, okay? This is still my day. I blinked. A scene? I asked. You mean like not reacting when your cousin excludes you from her bridal party? Or like being seated next to the speakers? Her smile tightened. I'm just saying some people come to weddings to celebrate love. Others come to prove something. I looked her right in the eye and said, Natalie, I don't need to prove anything. You already proved it for me when you didn't want me in your photos. That stunned her. Just for a moment, and then I walked away. Back at our table, Logan was waiting with 2 mini cheesecakes. He didn't ask what she said. He didn't need to. Feel better? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, actually I do. The rest of the night passed in flashes. A group of cousins pulling me into a line dance, a woman I didn't even know complimenting my dress. Logan spinning me once, and accidentally knocking over a candle. Don't worry, no fire. For the first time at a family event, I felt present, not tolerated, not edited out. Present. Toward the end of the night, I caught my mom's eye across the room. She smiled, not the strained, polite kind, a real one. And I smiled back. Because even if she didn't understand how much it hurt before, she saw me now. As Logan and I walked out under the string lights and into the cool night air, he looked over and said, So, rate the wedding? I grinned. 6 out of 10. Great lighting, weird guest list. Drama was a little forced. He laughed. Would attend again? I shrugged. Only if I'm not invited next time either. The next morning, I woke up sore from dancing, but smiling. For once, it wasn't fake. There was no hangover of embarrassment. No replaying the night in my head wondering if I'd said the wrong thing, worn the wrong thing, been the wrong thing. I'd simply existed, fully, unapologetically. And I liked the way it felt. Logan sent me a text around 9 a.m. Last night was iconic. Breakfast is on me if you're free. I sent back only if I get to pick the pancakes. He sent a syrup emoji. And that was that. We met at this little diner with cracked booths and waitresses who remembered your order if you came twice in a row. He looked tired, but happy. I feel like we just dropped into someone else's drama, he said, sipping coffee, and left before it turned tragic. That's family weddings, I said. He nodded. But you didn't just show up. You shifted the energy in that room. I blinked. You really think so? Logan leaned back. Tessa, half the room was staring at you, not because of the dress, because you held your own. I smiled into my coffee. After breakfast, I checked social media. Of course, Natalie's wedding was already everywhere. Perfectly filtered shots of her in the bridal suite, her and Andrew under a floral arch. Bridesmaids clinking glasses, matching robes, matching heels, matching teeth. But what stopped me was a video someone posted, a slow pan of the dance floor. In the middle, Logan and me, laughing, twirling. Just for a moment, I could see us through someone else's eyes. And I didn't look awkward, or out of place, or like someone who wasn't bridesmaid material. I looked like I belonged. A few hours later, my cousin Rachel sent me a DM. I just wanted to say, you looked amazing last night. And it was honestly kinda messed up you weren't up there with us. Just wanted you to know I noticed. I stared at the message for a full minute. Rachel wasn't the type to stir family drama. If she was saying that, it meant something. Then came the part I didn't expect. Natalie posted her official wedding dump. A 10-photo carousel, classic wedding recap. But I wasn't in a single photo. Not even the group dance shots. Not even the crowd ones. It was like I never existed. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was still hurt. So I posted my own. One picture. The same one Logan had snapped of us outside the reception. Me in my midnight blue dress. Him in that navy suit. Both of us lit by golden string lights. No caption. Just a single sparkle emoji. Within 2 hours it had more likes than any photo I'd posted in the last year. A bunch of my extended cousins commented, "You looked stunning. That dress." Honestly, the best part of the whole wedding. And then, a comment from someone unexpected. From Andrew. Yes, Natalie's husband. He wrote, "You and your date were seriously the best dressed. Hope you had fun." I nearly dropped my phone. 5 minutes later, that comment disappeared. But not before I screenshotted it. Because even if Natalie deleted it, even if she texted him in a rage, I had the proof. People saw me. The next weekend, I visited my mom. She didn't say anything when I walked in, but she hugged me longer than usual. Over lunch, she finally asked, "Did you enjoy yourself at the wedding?" I nodded. "I did. I noticed you looked really beautiful." She added, "I hope you know that." My eyes welled up, just a little, because my mom wasn't the best with words, but that was a big one. "Thanks, Mom." Then she added, "Natalie's been a little salty this week." I raised an eyebrow. "Because I wore a dress." My mom shrugged. "Because you looked happy." And she didn't plan for that. I laughed out loud. Because for once, I wasn't the one trying to keep the peace. Let Natalie be salty. I tasted enough bitterness growing up. I was done swallowing it. A few days later, Logan sent me a link. It was to a photography blog. Some local wedding photographer had done a best guest looks of the season roundup. And there we were. Photo number 3. Underneath, it said, "Unexpected elegance." A lesson in how confidence and chemistry can outshine any bridal party. I nearly screamed. It wasn't about being prettier than the bridesmaids. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about Natalie. In the end, it was about reclaiming something I didn't know I'd lost. The part of me that didn't wait to be picked. That didn't shrink when others overlooked her. that didn't apologize for being exactly who she was. I wasn't their idea of pretty enough, but I'd become something more powerful, unforgettable. And for the first time, that was enough for me. It's funny how people change their tune when they realize others are watching. The same family that left me off the bridal party list. They suddenly remembered I existed. It started subtly, liking my photos, commenting little compliments like stunning and gorgeous girl, like we hadn't all just lived through them, treating me like a shadow. Then came the private messages from girls who hadn't said a word to me at the wedding. That dress, though. Wait, how do you know, Logan? Asking for a friend. Not gonna lie. You were the moment. I didn't respond to most of them. Not out of pettiness, just peace. Because I had finally made peace with being visible on my own terms. A week after the wedding, I got a text from Natalie, the last person I expected or wanted to hear from. It was a single message. Hey, can we talk? Just that. No smiley face. No explanation. Just 4 words. I stared at it for 5 minutes, then put my phone down. Let her wait. The next day, she sent another message. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I was just trying to keep things balanced. You know how weddings are. I didn't respond, because that wasn't an apology. That was a justification. A bandage on a wound she didn't care enough to stop from happening. I thought that would be the end of it. But Natalie doesn't like loose ends, so she called. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, and picked up. Hey, I said flat. Tessa. She breathed, like we were long-lost sisters finally reconnecting. I waited. She took the silence as permission to continue. I just wanted to say, I saw your post, the one with your friend. You looked really good. I almost laughed. Thanks. There was a pause. Then she added, a lot of people were talking about you after the wedding. I knew that, but I let her say it. And honestly, she went on, I just want things to be good between us. No bad blood. There it was, the cleanup attempt. I stayed quiet. Natalie rushed to fill the silence. You know, maybe if I had thought more about it, I could have included you. Not as a bridesmaid, of course. There were only so many dresses. But maybe a reading or something cute like that. That stung more than I expected. Something cute, not something meaningful. Not something that would put me beside her. Just a pity spot, a decorative piece, like a flower arrangement. So I said what I needed to. Natalie, I don't need a seat at your table anymore, she laughed, awkwardly. What does that mean? It means, I'm done waiting for your approval. I used to care, I don't anymore. And honestly, I looked better not standing beside you. Silence, long silence. Then she said, wow, that's kind of harsh. No, I replied. It's just honest. After we hung up, I felt shaky, not because I regretted it, but because standing up to someone who's always held power over you, that never stops being scary, even when you know you're right. Logan called that evening. How was your day? He asked. I broke up with my cousin, he laughed. Bold move. You ever let go of someone and realize they were only holding you back anyway? He was quiet for a moment. Then, yeah, once. I wanted to ask who, but I didn't. Instead, I said, I think I'm finally done trying to belong where I wasn't wanted. You never needed them to see you, he said. You just needed to see yourself. And maybe that sounds cheesy, but it hit me like truth. A week later, my mom and I went to a local art show. It was a fundraiser for small creators. Booths full of prints, candles, handmade jewelry, my kind of place. We walked past one booth with wedding portraits, and there, right in the center, was the photo. Our photo. Me and Logan. String lights. Blue dress, his hand barely resting at the small of my back. And beneath it, a small sign. Best moments. Caught candidly. I stared. The photographer noticed. Hey, she said. You're her, right? The girl from Natalie Blake's wedding? I nodded slowly. She grinned. That photo got the most votes in my gallery poll. People said it looked like a movie. My mom, standing beside me, smiled wider than I've ever seen. We bought the print, framed it in gold, and hung it in my apartment. Not because I needed the reminder, but because sometimes the girl in the blue dress still surprises me. She doesn't chase invitations. She makes her own entrance, and the world finally sees her coming. Something shifted after that wedding, not just in how others saw me, but in how I saw myself. I stopped minimizing my presence, stopped hiding behind hoodies and quick goodbyes, stopped walking into rooms hoping to blend in. And I realized I never actually wanted to blend in. I was just afraid of being seen. But once I tasted what it felt like to walk in proud without apology, I couldn't go back. Logan and I started seeing more of each other. What began as one event turned into coffee on Sundays, deep combos on Tuesdays, and one spontaneous road trip to the lake because we both looked tired. He wasn't just arm candy for revenge. He was good for me, kind, grounded, and more importantly, he never once looked at me like I had to prove anything. He saw me fully before anyone else did, and I think that's what scared me the most. Because being liked by someone after you glow up is easy. Being respected before that, that's rare. One evening, about a month after the wedding, he came over for dinner. I was barefoot, messy bun, sweatshirt that said emotionally unavailable in faded print. He handed me takeout and said, "You know you're the main character, right?" I blinked. "What?" He grinned. "You keep walking around like you're a side plot, but you're not. You're the plot twist." I laughed. "That might be the cheesiest thing anyone's ever said to me." He raised an eyebrow. "And yet you're smiling." I rolled my eyes. But yeah, I was smiling. Because it felt good to finally be written into my own story. A few days later, I got an invitation in the mail. Another wedding. This time, Rachel's, the cousin who invited me to her table, who said, "You should be seen." She'd included a handwritten note. "Tessa, I'd be honored if you stood up with me. As a bridesmaid, you were the first person I thought of." I sat with that card for a long time. Not because I was unsure, but because it felt like something had come full circle. I wasn't being invited out of guilt. I was being wanted. I said yes. And this time, I picked my own dress color, soft emerald green. A callback to who I used to be. Earthy, calm, a little quiet, but paired with gold earrings and a bold lip. It said, "She's not hiding anymore." The week before the wedding, I got another text from Natalie. "So you're in Rachel's bridal party, huh?" No hi. No how are you? Just a sharp little needle. I typed out several responses, deleted them all, and finally settled on, I am. She left me on read. Good. At Rachel's wedding, I walked down the aisle holding a bouquet, arm in arm with another bridesmaid. No one snickered. No one shifted uncomfortably. And when the photographer said, "Let's get one more of the bridesmaids," I didn't step aside. I stepped forward. Later that evening, Logan spun me on the dance floor again. "I feel like this is becoming our thing," he said. "What? Crashing weddings where I redeem my self-worth?" He laughed. "No. Being the couple people remember." I smiled, because it was true. Natalie wasn't at this wedding. She claimed she was traveling, but I knew better. You don't skip a close cousin's wedding unless you can't stand the thought of being in the same room with someone who outgrew your shadow. And I had. After the wedding, Rachel hugged me tight. "You looked like you were glowing," she said. Like, finally, yourself. And I realized something. Maybe I'd always been pretty enough? Pretty enough to stand up there. Pretty enough to be seen? But more importantly, I was strong enough to keep showing up anyway, even when they didn't want me to. Especially then. One last thing. Remember that photo? The one from Natalie's wedding? The one under the string lights? It got reposted by a wedding magazine's Instagram account. Over 40,000 likes. They titled it, "Elegance Doesn't Always Wear White." People in the comments thought I was the bride. And for once, I didn't rush to correct them. because in a way, I was not of that wedding, but of my own story. The one where I stopped apologizing for taking up space. The one where I became unforgettable. The next time my name came up in the family group chat, it wasn't as a punchline, it was as a headline. One of Natalie's friends, a photographer, ironically, had reposted the now viral string lights photo with the caption, "This is what real presence looks like," and the internet ran with it. Within a week, my inbox was flooded with messages, some from people I barely knew, others from total strangers. "I saw your photo in an article about non-traditional beauty. So inspiring. You just gave me the confidence to go to my sister's wedding solo. Your dress, your look, your energy, unreal." It wasn't just the photo, it was the story it carried. People saw something in me that I hadn't seen in myself for most of my life. Someone worthy of being remembered. Then something unexpected happened. A writer from a mid-tier lifestyle blog reached out. She wanted to do a feature titled "Not Pretty Enough," one woman's story of family, confidence, and quiet power. At first, I thought it was a joke, but she was serious. She'd seen the photo, dug into the background, heard whispers of the drama, and she wanted me to tell it. I thought about it for days. Logan was all for it. "Tell your story," he said. "Not for them, for you." So I said yes. The article came out 2 weeks later. It was short, clean, and respectful. I didn't name Natalie, didn't shame anyone. But I told the truth. How I wasn't chosen for the bridal party. How I showed up anyway. How I wore a dress that wasn't cute or safe. How I stood tall and walked through their stairs. And how I reclaimed my own reflection in the process. The story spread faster than I expected. People were tired of curated perfection. They were hungry for something real. And then, Natalie texted. This time, it wasn't passive. It wasn't vague. It was furious. "You embarrassed me. My name is all over the comments. You made me look like a villain." I stared at the screen, heart racing. But this time, I didn't hesitate. I typed back, "You did that part on your own." She didn't respond. And neither did the family group chat. At least, not for a few days. Then, slowly, comments started coming in. "An aunt I barely spoke to. I had no idea what you were going through. You handled that with grace. A cousin I hadn't seen since childhood. Saw your article. Proud of you, girl." Even my mom, who once said, "Maybe they just didn't have enough dresses," finally texted, "I understand now, and I'm sorry I didn't then." I read it 3 times, then cried. Because even if the healing wasn't perfect, it was starting. A few days later, I went to a family barbecue, the kind I used to dread. But this time, I walked in head held high. Rachel greeted me like I was the guest of honor. A few younger cousins asked to take selfies with the famous cousin. I laughed, blushed, played it off, but inside, I felt like I was walking through fire. And it wasn't burning me anymore. Natalie didn't come. Of course she didn't. But someone said she saw the article, and the photo, and the comments, and the reposts. And Logan. Oh yes. Especially Logan. Speaking of which, that night, while we were watching bad Netflix and eating popcorn straight from the bag, he said something that stuck with me. "You know, you didn't just show up and look good at a wedding." I raised an eyebrow. "No," he shook his head. "You rewrote the ending and then let people read it." He was right, because that's what I'd done. I took the version of me they tried to box in, the not pretty enough, the not photogenic, the good enough for the background. And I made her front page. Not for revenge, not for claps, but for me. I didn't want to go viral. I wanted to go visible. And I had. On my own terms. It's funny the way people act like confidence is something you stumble into. Like it's gifted to you when you hit a certain weight, or nail the right makeup tutorial, or finally get picked by the right crowd. But it's not. It's built, slowly, layer by layer. And for me, it started the night I walked into Natalie's wedding with Logan on my arm, and a navy dress that didn't ask for permission. Now, months later, people still talk about that night, not just in my family, but in emails, comments, DMs from strangers. One girl wrote, "I wore the red dress, the one I was afraid of, because you made me believe I could." Another said, "I stopped waiting to be invited. I invited myself to my own life." That one hit me, because that's exactly what I did. I stopped waiting for Natalie's approval, stopped shrinking, stopped asking, "Am I enough?" I answered it myself. Logan and I were sitting in my apartment one night when he asked me something I didn't expect. "Do you ever wish you had been in her bridal party?" I thought about it, really thought, and I shook my head. "No, not even a little?" he asked, smiling. "No," I said, "because I would have been standing beside someone who didn't see me. I would have smiled through the ceremony knowing I was only there because it looked good on Instagram." He nodded. "So you'd rather be the moment than part of the picture?" Exactly. We stayed quiet for a bit after that, just listening to the rain hit the windows. Then he said, "You know you're not the same girl I met at that wedding, right?" I looked at him. "You mean the one crying in the parking lot before walking in?" He smiled. "That one." I laughed. "Yeah. She was scared. She was brave." Not long after, Logan got an offer out of state work with a big nonprofit. He didn't tell me right away. Maybe he was afraid I'd say not to go, but when he finally did, I didn't flinch. "You should go," I said. "You'll be okay without me." "I'll be okay because of me." We promised to stay in touch. We did better than that. We stayed close. Maybe not as a couple, but as two people who helped each other level up. Sometimes that's the most honest kind of love. I still go to family events now, not out of guilt, not to prove anything, just because I can. Rachel and I are close now. My mom sees me more clearly than she ever did. Even some of Natalie's friends follow me online. I don't rub anything in. I don't post revenge. I just live out loud. And Natalie? Last I heard, she was planning her first vow renewal. More bridesmaids this time. A bigger dress. More sparkle. But not more grace. That's something you can't fake. I used to think I had to become more beautiful to be accepted. Now I know I had to accept myself to see my beauty. It was always there. It was just waiting for me to stop hiding. One last thing. Remember that magazine that posted my photo? They offered me a monthly column. Not on fashion, not on weddings, but on confidence. Me, writing about confidence. Funny, right? But I said yes, because if even one other girl reads my words and decides to wear the dress, take the photo, walk into the room she was told she didn't belong in, then all of it was worth it. I was never not pretty enough. I was too much for people who needed me small. And now I'm not waiting for their compliments. I'm walking in my own spotlight, one I didn't borrow, one I didn't beg for, one I built.